Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
Becky had always been conservative, both in her political views and in how she handled money. She could be described as morally upright, and she insisted we attend church every Sunday. I have to admit, I loved the life we had together and appreciated the structured plan Becky had envisioned for our future. By contrast, I was not as organized. I wanted to be a good provider, but I often struggled to find the right path. Becky seemed like the perfect partner for me, and I was more than happy to follow her lead when it came to building our life together. While Becky appeared to be exemplary in many traditional ways, our relationship was also marked by a strong physical and emotional connection. We didn't venture into anything extreme, but we were open with one another, exploring our thoughts and sharing our personal ideas about intimacy. Occasionally, we tried new things, including light experimentation within the boundaries of mutual respect and comfort. In private, Becky was much more expressive than one might expect, and I believed that we were deeply fulfilled in that part of our relationship. Sometimes we made love tenderly, and sometimes there was more intensity, especially when she had enjoyed a glass of her favorite Napa Valley Chardonnay. It never once crossed my mind that I might not be enough for her. That night, as I stood in the doorway, what I saw overwhelmed me. I watched her with someone else, her boss. I could not comprehend why she would want to be with another person. Why wasn't I enough? Why wasn't I the one she needed? As I mentioned before, I've always been more relaxed by nature than she was. Many of my friends would describe me as easygoing. Perhaps I can be a little self-focused at times, but I've never been particularly interested in politics. I tend to be skeptical of both major sides, and while Becky was careful with money, I was the opposite. If not for her commitment to budgeting, we probably would not have saved much at all. In many ways, we balanced each other out perfectly. I worked as a lead engineer for a company that designed and supplied various fasteners to manufacturers. While it may not sound glamorous, I found the work exciting and intellectually rewarding. Our clients came to us with technical challenges, and I developed practical solutions to meet their needs. Becky, meanwhile, earned a degree in marketing but had difficulty finding a suitable job in Oklahoma City for some time. Eventually, she was hired by a mid-sized advertising agency that primarily worked with local car dealerships and small businesses. It was the kind of job she had always dreamed of, and it paid her well. I was genuinely happy for her. She led a small team responsible for creating advertising campaigns. It was a step up from her previous position in Kansas City, and her move had clearly been a success for both of us. You might say I only admit this now, after everything that has happened, but I never really liked her supervisors. Ken was the vice president of customer service and reported directly to Roger, the company president. At company events, they were both outwardly friendly, but I always felt as if they did not take me seriously, as though I was just an accessory to Becky, not her equal. They would ask polite questions like, "How are you?" or "How do you like Oklahoma City?" but never tried to connect with me on a deeper level. It seemed as though they either didn't care to know me, or they didn't see the need. Now, I understand why. The truth had been right in front of me. I saw Ken with my wife, and I froze. It felt like invisible hands were holding me in place, forcing me to witness something I could never have imagined. For several moments, I was completely paralyzed. But then, the weight lifted, and I found my voice. Overcome with emotion, I shouted, "Get away from her, Ken!" They both turned their heads toward me, startled. They froze. Both of them stopped moving immediately. The look on Becky's face was one of absolute shock. Ken, on the other hand, looked furious. "How did you get here?" he demanded loudly. I held up Becky's ID badge, which I had used to enter the building. I didn't feel the need to say anything else. That was explanation enough. I noticed Becky's hand behind her back, trying to push Ken away, but he didn't move. He kept his grip on her, still standing too close, his hands holding her at the waist, keeping her against the table. "You need to leave, both of you," I said, my voice louder now. Ken shouted, "You need to get out of here." "No," I replied calmly. "You, Ken, and you too, Becky." Becky began to push him away more forcefully. "Let go of me," she yelled. "Ken," I said, "get away from me." Still, Ken didn't move. He just stared at me, expression blank but intense. Oddly, in that moment, I was almost relieved that he wasn't pretending to be ashamed or backing down. Maybe part of me didn't want to see him try to act like he was doing her a favor, like what I had seen was somehow a misunderstanding. Perhaps I should have stepped in physically, but my thoughts were racing. I couldn't think clearly. The shock of what I had witnessed was too overwhelming. The woman I had believed to be conservative and loyal was now someone I barely recognized. All I wanted in that moment was to get out of there. I turned around and walked out, closing the door behind me. "Jim, wait!" Becky screamed. But I didn't wait. I couldn't. The only thing on my mind was getting as far away from that building, and from her, as possible. Her employee badge slipped from my hand as I broke into a run. I rushed to my truck, unsure of where I was going, but knowing I had to move. I jumped into the cab, started the engine, and sped out of the parking lot. I glanced into the rearview mirror but didn't see Becky following. I figured Ken was still there, and maybe whatever was happening hadn't ended. I had expected Becky to come running after me. I knew she was panicking when I left, but apparently, not enough. Ken hadn't looked like he was ready to stop, judging by his reaction when I entered the room. I had only been driving for a few minutes when I realized I was heading toward our house. My mind was in chaos. Tears streamed down my face. And then, suddenly, it hit me. Somewhere deep inside, I had already begun forming a plan. I was going to go home, pack my things, and find somewhere else to stay for the night. I couldn't be near her. Not after what I had seen. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was Becky. Reluctantly, I answered. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice strained. "Oh God, Jim. I'm so sorry you had to see that," she said softly. I said only 3 words before ending the call. "You, Becky." I hung up and threw the phone onto the seat beside me. As I drove, I started mentally listing the things I would need over the next few days. When I reached the house, I went straight to the kitchen and grabbed a few garbage bags. In the bathroom, I threw all my toiletries into one of them. I went to the closet, grabbed a pair of shoes, and began tossing in shirts and pants. Once the bag was full, I tied it shut and moved to the dresser. Starting with the top drawer, I gathered socks, underwear, t-shirts, shorts, even an old swimsuit from the bottom drawer. From the top of the dresser, I grabbed my watches and a bottle of cologne. All of it went quickly into the second bag. Then I opened the drawer of the bedside table and saw my .38 Smith & Wesson. I didn't think I would need it, but in my panic and confusion, I threw it into the bag. I looked around the room once more. There was nothing else I needed. I tied up the second bag and carried both to the front door. Then I went into the home office to grab my laptop. I placed it in my backpack along with a phone charger and headed back to the door. Just as I reached for the bags, the front door suddenly swung open. Becky was standing there. She stood about 10 feet away from me. It was obvious she had dressed in a hurry, her red hair was tousled, and her face was streaked with tears. We both froze in place. "Jim, I'm sorry you saw that," she said quietly. "Why did you come to my office without calling?" I replied, picking up both bags and walking toward the exit. That was all I could say. "Wait, Jim, please. Just talk to me." She stepped in front of the door, blocking my way. "Move, Becky," I said firmly. "Get out of my way." Her eyes widened. I'd never spoken to her like that before. "I've never laid a hand on a woman," I growled, the fury burning in my chest. "But if you take one more step toward me, I swear, you'll regret it." I didn't recognize my own voice. Becky must have seen the fire in my eyes, the uncontrollable rage in my expression. And for a second, I wasn't sure what I might do if she didn't move. She must have seen it too. Without another word, she stepped aside. I grabbed my bags and stormed out the front door. I threw the bags onto the passenger seat of my truck, started to walk around to the driver's side, and then I stopped. I had forgotten something. I had to go back. When I re-entered the house, Becky was still standing in the living room, crying. My sudden return caught her off guard, but I didn't even glance at her. "Jim, please, just stop. Talk to me. Let me explain." I ignored her. Moving quickly through the kitchen, I opened the back door and looked into the yard, eyes scanning the shadows. "Max. Come here, boy," I called into the darkness. A moment later, I felt something brush against my leg. There he was, my black Labrador, standing by my side, wagging his tail like nothing had happened. He looked up at me with those familiar, trusting eyes. "Come on, buddy," I said, patting his head. "Let's get out of here." Max followed me through the house, back into the living room. I didn't stop walking, but I did look at Becky one last time. The rage still simmered in my chest. It was hard to believe that this much anger and heartbreak could exist inside one person. But it was there. It filled every corner of my mind. I was in a place emotionally that I had never known before. Becky sobbed uncontrollably. "Jim, please. I'm begging you. Just stay. Talk to me. I'll explain everything." I didn't respond. I walked out the front door with Max and slammed it shut behind me with a loud bang. As I turned to the truck, I heard the door swing open again. "Jim, please, don't go. I'm begging you." I opened the passenger side door and let Max jump in. I tossed the bags into the back seat, then slammed the door shut. As I walked around the truck, I noticed our neighbors, Stan and Bridget, standing on their front porch. Their house lights were on, and they were clearly watching everything unfold. I didn't wave. I didn't speak. I simply got in the driver's seat, started the engine, and drove off. The tires squealed slightly as I accelerated down the street. Max and I sped away into the night. 2 blocks later, I realized I had no destination. I didn't know where I was going. I pulled over onto a quiet residential street and turned off the engine. Silence. I looked down at the floor of the truck, trying to gather my thoughts, but nothing came. My mind was blank, overwhelmed by grief. The anger that had consumed me only minutes earlier had now given way to something even heavier, sorrow. Tears began to fall. I hadn't cried like that since I was a child. I didn't think I was capable of that kind of emotion anymore, but I was wrong. I buried my face in my hands. My sobs were deep, painful, uncontrollable. I kept repeating the same word over and over. Why? Suddenly, I felt something warm and wet on the side of my face. Max was licking the parts of my face not covered by my hands, trying to comfort me in the only way he knew how. That moment broke something inside me, and healed something too. He was scared. I could see it in his eyes. He didn't know what had happened, but he knew something was very wrong. My sobbing slowed. I lowered my hands and looked at him. He gave me a long, mournful stare, the look of a friend who knew he was needed. "Damn it, Max," I whispered, trying to steady my breath. "What do we do now?" Through tears, he looked at me with an expression that made it seem as though he was wondering the same question I had asked myself. What now? "We will find a place to stay," I told him, "and figure things out in the morning. But first, I needed something to help me sleep." "We will stop at the liquor store," I added. "I think I need some medicine tonight." The next morning, I woke up with a terrible hangover. My head was pounding. I turned my eyes to the nightstand. There was about an inch of vodka left in the bottle. "God, you should not have done this to yourself," I muttered aloud. The memories of the previous night began returning, slowly and painfully. The hangover clouded everything. I felt disoriented. I did not even know what time it was at first. Then I remembered Max. He stood quietly at the edge of the bed, wagging his tail, waiting patiently. I glanced at the small clock on the desk. It was 9:30 a.m. "Sorry, Max. I am so sorry." I jumped to my feet, realizing I had forgotten to take him out. But I had to slow down. My head spun, and my legs nearly gave out. My foggy brain had not yet reconnected with my body. Then I realized I did not have his leash. It must have been one of many things I left behind in my rush to leave home. I took the belt from my pants and used it as a makeshift leash. I also grabbed a small trash bag from the bin next to the table to clean up after Max. Using the belt, I led Max outside to the patch of grass next to the motel. The daylight was sharp and painful to my eyes. It made my headache even worse. I remembered that I needed to call work. I reached into my pocket for my phone, but it was not there. We had to find it, and fast. After Max finished his business, I said, "All right, Max. Here is the plan. First, I will find some painkillers. Then I will call work and say I am sick today. After that, we will get something to eat." My stomach was twisting. I hoped that some food might settle it. I found the phone in my truck and turned it on. It vibrated constantly as it powered up. Becky had tried calling me 8 times and had sent nearly 10 messages. I did not want to deal with any of it. Not now. I ignored her calls and texts and instead called my boss. I told him I had a family emergency and would not be coming in today. I might need a few more days off next week. He understood. Carl, my supervisor, had 5 children of his own. He always said that family came first. "Take all the time you need, Jim," he said gently. His sincerity gave me some comfort. At least one part of my life, my job, seemed to be in order. Later, Max and I sat in the McDonald's parking lot and ate our breakfast. I had a sausage McMuffin. Max had an egg McMuffin, which he devoured in seconds. I sat quietly, thinking about what I had seen the night before. Sadness weighed heavily on me. I did not cry, there were no tears left. I just felt hollow. Completely empty. It was like my entire world had collapsed around me. Now, I truly understood what people meant when they talked about a dark cloud hanging over you. The world I now lived in was entirely different from the one I woke up in just yesterday morning. I began thinking about what would come next. Would I speak to Becky? I knew I would have to, eventually. But not yet. And what could she possibly say? I had already seen enough. Enough to understand what it meant to her and to me. I do not want to be anywhere near that situation right now, I told Max quietly. Eventually, I would probably want to know why. Why she had done it. Why she had betrayed everything we built together. Why that man? Her boss? What was she planning? To live a double life while I raised our family alone? Was she going to leave me for him because he had more money? He did not even seem like her type. But then again, maybe I never really knew her. As I thought through all the possible reasons, I came to a painful conclusion: it did not matter anymore. Whatever her reasoning was, my marriage was over. It felt like I was living in a nightmare, one I desperately wished I could wake up from. But I knew I could not. I had seen the truth with my own eyes. And now, nothing in my life felt real anymore. It all felt meaningless. I started crying again. Poor Max just looked at me with his sad eyes. I scratched him behind the ears and said, "Do not worry, buddy. We can handle this. We will get through all of it somehow." God, I love that woman with all my heart. Becky and I met in college through mutual friends. We were both at Ernie's house one Sunday afternoon to watch the Chiefs game. Ernie and Carol were already engaged and seemed like a genuinely kind couple. Ernie was an engineering graduate student who had once helped me with calculus when I was struggling. Becky knew Carol from a class they shared. That day, around a dozen people had gathered at Ernie's house for the big playoff game. Becky was fully decked out in Chiefs merchandise. Her red hair and fair skin seemed perfectly suited to the team's red and gold colors. She even had the Chiefs logo painted on her cheek. I first noticed her when I entered the kitchen with the beer I had brought. She was helping Carol prepare snacks, and the two of them were energetically discussing how the Chiefs might perform against the Ravens. A girl who knows football. That is my kind of woman, I thought. "Oh, hi Jim. I am glad you came. Are you ready? We are going to tear the Ravens apart," Carol exclaimed. "Well, I am not as confident as you, but yes, it should be fun," I replied, smiling. Carol saw me glancing toward Becky. "Jim, this is Becky, my friend. She is in a business communications course with me." "Nice to meet you, Becky," I said, shaking her hand. "So, I take it you are a Chiefs fan? I grinned and gave her a playful wink. We both laughed. I began placing the beer into a large cooler on the floor while stealing glances at Becky from the corner of my eye. She was beautiful, about 5 feet 4 inches tall, with reddish-brown hair and warm brown eyes that sparkled when she smiled. She had a slender figure with elegant curves. There was something graceful and natural about the way she moved around the kitchen. It was impossible not to notice her confidence and presence. Still, I assumed that a woman like her must already have a boyfriend, maybe even 2 or 3. Becky glanced at me. By then, I had finished unpacking the beer and was standing awkwardly, trying to think of how to keep the conversation going. I was sure she had noticed I had been looking at her. She looked at me again, this time more directly, as if evaluating me in return. "Where's your Chiefs gear?" she asked with a raised eyebrow. "You are not secretly a Ravens fan, are you?" She looked at me so seriously that it made me laugh. "No way," I replied quickly. "I grew up here. Chiefs forever." I could tell I had scored a few points with that response. Becky picked up a tray of snacks and carried it into the living room. Carol smiled at me and said, "I know what you were going to ask." "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to play it cool. "No, she does not have a boyfriend," Carol said, still smiling. "But be careful, she recently got out of a long-term relationship. That was about 2 months ago." Later, I made sure to sit next to Becky during the game. I learned that she was from North Kansas City and one of 3 children. Her father worked at a car manufacturing plant. Fortunately, the Chiefs won the game, and Becky was in high spirits. During the post-game celebrations, I seized the moment and asked her if she would like to have dinner with me the following Saturday. She smiled and said she would like that. We started dating soon afterward and got along really well. We shared similar values and visions for our future. Becky was especially clear and direct about her goals, which I admired. One evening, she looked me straight in the eyes and said, "I want to spend the next few years focusing on my career, save up some money, and eventually start a family. 2 kids, maybe 3. Once they are in school, I would like to go back to work." She watched me closely, clearly trying to gauge my reaction. I knew even the slightest sign of hesitation on my part could have ended things right then and there. Thankfully, her plans matched my own. But still, sometimes I felt a little out of place around her. She was stunning. Becky was beautiful, and I had always considered myself average. For most of my life, I lived with the feeling that I was invisible to others. Who would ever really notice me? But now, walking beside Becky, I realized that people were noticing us, or more accurately, they were noticing her. Still, their attitude toward me changed. People, especially women, suddenly seemed more friendly. It was as if simply standing next to Becky made me appear more attractive. Becky and I quickly became inseparable. We enjoyed every moment together, and she brought me along everywhere she went. On weekends, if we were not at an art festival or attending a high school football game on Friday night, we were out grocery shopping or picking up clothes from the dry cleaner on Saturday mornings. Becky would pull out her to-do list, and off we would go. She always had a plan. This time, I had a plan of my own. I was going to marry this woman. I waited 10 months before proposing. I did not want to seem too eager and risk scaring her off. As my father used to say, you can swing big, but it is important to wait for the right pitch. To my surprise, and of course, my great relief, she said yes. It happened in the summer, about 1.5 years after we first met. The wedding was large, not overly luxurious, but filled with guests. We both had big families and plenty of relatives in the area. We continued working and spent the next year living in the Kansas City area, where we had both grown up. Eventually, we began to feel that it was time to try something new. Neither of us was satisfied with our jobs or the companies we worked for. We wanted more, something that would allow us to grow and express ourselves fully. We were not afraid of challenges, so we began looking beyond Kansas City. That search led us to Oklahoma City. I found a job there that aligned with my engineering background and offered potential for career advancement. When I went for the interview, I did some research and discovered that all of the managers were engineers. They had plenty of technical personnel, but they needed engineers who could also make strategic decisions. Becky and I discussed it and decided it was time to move. Oklahoma City was large enough to have a healthy advertising sector, so we were confident that Becky would quickly find a new opportunity there. I accepted the job offer, and we moved into a cozy condominium in the city center. As I settled into my new position, Becky began searching for advertising work with incredible enthusiasm. She spent hours every day polishing her resume, researching local agencies, and building contacts within the local advertising community. I had no doubt her efforts would pay off. But confidence alone was not enough to overcome the stagnation of the local economy. Oil prices were low, and the oil industry was the region's main economic driver. After a few months of tireless searching, Becky had not received a single interview. She began to lose hope. Her usual spark dimmed. One evening, I sat beside her and tried to encourage her. I told her she might need to think outside the box. I hoped she could find a role that still made use of her advertising skills, even if it was not with a traditional agency. More than that, I wanted to lift her spirits, because when Becky was sad, her emotional connection and intimacy waned. Our relationship began to feel distant. "Think outside the box, huh?" Becky repeated. I still remember how she looked at me. I could almost hear her mind beginning to turn. Her creativity, always brimming with potential, had been sparked. She perked up just a little. What I did not know at the time was just how far outside the box she was about to go, or how it would change both of our lives. After that conversation, Becky's mood improved. A few weeks later, I came home from work to find her practically glowing with joy. She had prepared a beautiful dinner and was moving happily around the kitchen. I noticed her favorite bottle of wine sitting on the counter. "Chardonnay on a weekday?" I asked with a smile. "What is the occasion?" "I have an interview tomorrow with one of the advertising firms downtown," Becky said, beaming. "Is it Simon & Simpson?" I asked. I knew that was the largest firm in the city, and Becky had often said she dreamed of working there. "No, but it is their competitor, Hartford Associates. They have a great reputation," she replied, smiling with confidence. I was happy for her, whether she got the job or not. I began opening the bottle of wine. "Well, I am sure you will absolutely impress them with your talent and energy. Before long, the whole city will know your name," I said, handing her a full glass. I truly believed it. Becky had that kind of potential and that kind of presence. As we walked into our bedroom, I raised my glass and said, "Let us make a toast to Becky Williams. Her work will soon be recognized throughout the city, and her client sales will soar, thanks to Hartford Associates." We both smiled and took generous sips of wine. I was confident that Becky would do well in her interview. I also assumed that with her spirits lifted and a little wine in her system, we were in for a wonderful evening. That, to me, was the definition of a win-win. Becky did exceptionally well in her interview and was offered a significant role on a team responsible for developing campaigns for mid-tier clients. The salary was substantially higher than what she had earned in Kansas City. She told me the job would not be easy, but it offered greater visibility within the company, and a promotion was possible if her campaigns performed well. Over the next few months, we both became deeply focused on our careers. We worked long hours, but we were motivated by the opportunities ahead. We began talking seriously about starting a family. It was something we both wanted, but we agreed that we needed to be in a more stable position first. We were both earning more than we ever had, and as planned, we started setting aside money for a down payment on a house. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. Then, about 4 months after Becky began her new job, she came home visibly upset. She was distracted, quiet, even a little withdrawn. It was a complete shift in her usual upbeat personality. "Becky, what happened? Did something go wrong?" I asked. She looked at me as though she had seen a ghost. "It is nothing, Jim. Just some things at work," she replied. "Becky, do not lie to me. I can tell something is bothering you. Please, talk to me." She looked at me with an almost sorrowful expression but said nothing. I could see tears welling up in her eyes. I waited silently, giving her the space to respond. Finally, she spoke. Jim. She hesitated. Her mind seemed to be racing. They are reorganizing at work. People are being let go. I am afraid I might be one of them. A tear slipped down her cheek. Oh, Becky, I think you are just overthinking. I am sure your supervisors already know how valuable you are. They would not even consider letting you go. I hope you are right, Jim. I love this job. What will we do if I lose it? How can we keep saving for a house? Becky's mood remained downcast for the next couple of weeks. She was clearly distracted. I tried my best to lift her spirits each evening. On the second Saturday after she shared her concerns, I took her out to a nice restaurant for dinner. I really believe you have nothing to worry about, I told her gently. Oh, Jim, if I lose this job, I truly do not know what to do. It would be a major setback. We had been saving so well. I was hoping that by next summer we could start looking for a house. If I get fired, all of that will fall apart. Honey, if that happens, we will handle it. It might slow us down, but it will not stop us. We will figure it out, together. Becky did not seem fully comforted by my words. Becky, go in there and take control of the situation. Remind them that they can count on you. Show them how talented you are. Remember the Robinson campaign? That was your idea, and it was a huge success. Your slogan helped sell so many cars. You always give it your best. Yes, Jim, you are right. I will speak to Ken on Monday. And she did. Becky went in and spoke with her supervisor, letting him know that she was committed and dependable. That conversation changed everything. Not only was Becky not laid off, she was promoted. But what surprised me most was that her mood still did not improve. I had expected her to be thrilled about the new responsibilities. With the added job security and a higher income, we were in an even better place financially. Sometimes she worked later than before, especially on Thursday evenings, when she had planning meetings. But the extra hours did not seem overwhelming, and yet, something still seemed off. Becky, how is work going since the promotion? I asked one evening. With job security and the extra money we are saving, I thought you would be happy. I am sorry you have to work a little longer, but I hope it is worth it. She looked at me with that same tense expression I had seen before when she feared losing her job. It is not about the extra hours, Jim. It is about, she stopped mid-sentence, her expression tight. I waited for her to finish, but she suddenly smiled and said, I was thinking, maybe we should start our family earlier. What do you think? Of course, dear. Whenever you want, I replied. Only now, looking back, do I realize that I should have noticed the signs. At the time, it never occurred to me that Becky could be unfaithful. She had always been strategic, focused on goals and planning ahead. I truly believed that everything was going according to plan. Her mission, I believed, was to build a family with me. But now, it seemed her true intention may have been something else entirely, perhaps to betray me emotionally and eventually leave me for someone wealthier, like her boss. He was single, and I started to wonder if they had been planning a future together behind my back. Maybe her recent mood swings had less to do with work and more to do with preparing for a separation. At that point, I knew I needed answers. But I was too angry to talk to her calmly. All I could think about was ending the marriage. She clearly did not care about me the way I thought she did. After breakfast, Max and I returned to our hotel room. I opened my laptop and started searching for legal help. After several calls, I found an attorney who could meet with me the same day. The office was small and unassuming, located in a professional building a few miles away, second floor, fifth door on the right. The sign read Robert Matt, attorney at law. I walked in. There was no receptionist, so I passed the empty front desk and looked into the main office. A man was seated at a table, reviewing documents. Hello, I'm Jim. Great. Come in and have a seat, he replied. Thank you for seeing me on such short notice. My name is Robert Matt, he said, extending a hand. But you can call me Bob. We shook hands, and I sat in a chair that looked like it had been around since the 1980s. Can my dog come in? I asked. I didn't want to leave him at the hotel, and I definitely can't leave him in a hot car. Of course, Bob said. What's his name? Max. He's my loyal companion. Honestly, he might be the only reliable companion I have right now. I understand, Bob said. So, is that what brings you in today? Trouble at home? Yes. I'm considering a divorce. Yesterday, I found my wife in what I can only describe as a compromising situation with her boss. When you say you found her, do you mean you witnessed something firsthand? Yes, I said. I was about 10 feet away. There's no doubt about what I saw. I'm sorry to hear that. No one deserves to find out something like that in such a painful way. Did this happen at your home? No, it happened at her office. I was trying to surprise her. Turns out, I was the one who got surprised. All right, Bob said. Let's begin by going over exactly what you saw. Then we'll discuss your relationship history and, finally, the legal aspects. I found myself liking Bob. He was direct and professional. I recounted everything I had seen and how out of character it all felt. At times, it was hard to keep my emotions in check. Max, who had been lying nearby, got up and came to sit at my feet. I scratched him behind the ears and whispered, "It'll be okay, buddy." Were there any signs before this incident? Bob asked. Not really, I admitted. Maybe a few odd moments, but I thought we had a solid relationship. Clearly, I was wrong. Jim, it's possible that what you saw doesn't tell the whole story. Could there have been any coercion involved? Bob, I heard her asking him to be intimate again. That's enough for me to know what I saw was real and voluntary. Bob shook his head slightly and then explained the divorce laws in our state. He said that in Oklahoma, I could file for divorce on the grounds of infidelity, but it usually only made a difference in matters like child custody. It would not necessarily help me get a better financial settlement. I was still deciding how I wanted to move forward, but by the end of the meeting, Bob made it clear he could start the process whenever I was ready. I want to move forward as soon as possible, I said. Can you start immediately? Jim, you said this only happened yesterday, he replied. Maybe give yourself a few days to process everything before I officially begin working on your case. Our first consultation is free, so you're not on the clock yet. Have you spoken to your wife since it happened? No. I do not think there's anything she could say that would change how I feel after what I saw. Well, my free advice is this: try to talk to her. Even in the most unexpected situations, communication can reveal things that may help you move forward, whether together or apart. And if you do decide to file, her perspective might help us build a better case. I don't know, Bob. It would be hard to sit across from her after what I saw. I do not think any explanation could erase that image from my memory. I understand, he said. But give yourself some time to calm down. Rash decisions made in pain often lead to regret. Whatever you choose, I'll be here to help. Bob handed me a packet of papers. And as I advised, take a few days, think about it. If you decide to move forward, here's a list of information we'll need to begin. It also includes some important steps to take if you're planning to separate financially. We'll also file for legal separation to protect your assets. I looked over the documents. Okay, Bob. I'll give myself a few days and see how things go. He stood up and extended his hand. And Jim, be careful. If you struggle with anger, don't give her any reason to use that against you in court. You mean I shouldn't strangle her? I said with a strained smile, trying to make it clear it was a bad joke. At least, I hoped it was a joke. After everything I had felt in the past 24 hours, I wasn't even sure anymore. Bob didn't laugh. He simply shook my hand and replied, "Call me in a few days and let me know how things are going." "Come on, Max," I said. My dog jumped up and followed me as we left the office. "Let's go grab dinner." "How about Burger King, buddy?" Underscore 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 underscore. Becky's perspective. "Oh my God," I whispered, staring at my reflection in disbelief. Jim saw everything. He walked in while Ken and I were in his office, and then just turned around and left. By the time I caught up with him at home, he was so furious I was genuinely afraid. I had never seen him like that. I could feel the hatred in his eyes, and I knew this could be the end of our marriage. It wasn't what he thought, but it didn't matter. The moment I saw him standing in the doorway, my entire world collapsed. I couldn't breathe. Panic surged through me. I wanted to erase what had happened, to take it all back. But I couldn't. Ken and I had crossed a line. We were in the middle of something intimate and private, and Jim saw it all. I heard his voice, but I don't even remember what he said. Ken suddenly froze and pressed me down against the desk. I could feel his body tense. I began to struggle, trying to push him away. "How did you get in here? You need to leave," Ken hissed, his tone full of anger, not regret, not concern. Was he seriously thinking I would continue after my husband caught us? "Get your hands off me," I shouted, shoving him back. I heard the door close. Jim had left. I screamed again, twisting until I finally broke free of Ken. I was shaking all over. Ken looked more irritated that Jim had interrupted us than concerned that my life had just been shattered. He didn't seem to care. I turned and slapped him across the face with all the force I had. He recoiled. "What is wrong with you, Ken? You didn't even let me get up. Then you kicked Jim out like he was the problem. You're so arrogant." He tried to respond, but I cut him off. He had every right to be there. It's his wife you were with after hours, not some stranger. And you acted like he was the one intruding. I hurried to pull my clothes back on, disgusted. Ken's eyes were still filled with desire, like none of this had affected him at all. That made me sick. I rushed out of the office. Jim's truck was already gone. I caught a glimpse of his tail lights in the distance. I stood there in the parking lot, tears streaming down my face, watching the last pieces of my marriage disappear into the night. I ran back to my desk and grabbed my phone. I had to call Jim. I had to try and explain, even if it was hopeless. I pressed his name in my favorites. He answered on the first ring. "You, Becky," he said coldly, and then hung up. I stood there in silence, phone still in my hand, heart racing. Behind me, I heard Ken's voice. He was standing in the doorway of his office, still partially undressed. "You should give it some time to cool down," he said. "Why don't you come back inside? We can finish what we started." I stared at him in disbelief. "Are you serious right now?" He didn't reply, just looked at me like he hadn't heard anything I said. "You really think I'd want to be with you after what just happened? Jim saw everything, and all you care about is yourself. You're unbelievable." And with that, I turned and walked away, leaving Ken behind in the dark hallway, and hoping it wasn't too late to fix what I had broken. You should consider yourself lucky he did not come in and confront you directly. Not in this lifetime. That man should still be grateful he did not do something reckless by trying to threaten me. Otherwise, he would have found his wife with someone else and ended up hurt that very same night. I did not have time to listen to his bragging. I grabbed my bag and headed for the exit. Home was the only place I could find Jim, and I needed to get there as quickly as possible. When I arrived, I saw Jim's truck parked across 2 spaces in the driveway. I quickly parked my car in front of the house, breaking the rules, and jumped out without thinking. I ran into the house, unsure of what I was going to say, but knowing I needed to talk to him. I had to try to calm him down and explain everything. I opened the door and saw Jim standing there, holding 2 garbage bags. We just stood and stared at each other. I saw the fire in Jim's eyes. It looked like he was ready to explode with anger. At the same time, I noticed tears streaming down his face. I had never seen Jim cry before. It broke my heart, and I started crying too. Everything hit me all at once. Within minutes, Jim had taken our dog Max and sped away in his truck. My legs gave out. I fell to my knees in the hallway, leaving the door open, and sobbed uncontrollably. I curled up on the floor, the sobs coming from deep inside me. I do not know how long I stayed like that. Even when the tears dried up, I did not move. I did not want to move. What should I do now? Where should I go? The man I loved so much now hated me. Becky, are you okay? I heard a voice above me. It was my neighbor Kelly from the house across the street. Now he is gone and not answering my calls. I try to call him every 15 minutes, hoping he will pick up. I have sent him messages, begging him to talk to me. I need him to understand that things are not as they seem. I definitely do not like Ken. Ken is a man who pressured me into a situation I never wanted. I think I am partly to blame, but I never planned for any of this to happen. It all started when I was desperately trying to find a job. Jim and I moved to Oklahoma City about 3 months ago for his new position. Jim was the lead engineer for a fastener company. Unlike his previous job, Jim loved this one and came home every evening talking enthusiastically about his projects. We had moved to Oklahoma City to advance our careers and move closer to our dream of starting a family. The only problem was that I could not find a job. In fact, I had a hard time even getting interviews, and when I did, they were only from companies looking for marketers, not the advertising role I wanted. "Rebecca, you definitely have an impressive resume," said Ken. He was an attractive man, about 50 years old, tall, with black hair that was half gray. He looked fit and wore an expensive suit. I always try to be observant during interviews, and it was clear Ken dressed and acted to impress. "Please, call me Becky," I said. "Well, Becky," he replied, "I am not sure this position will interest you. I am afraid they will not give you the same responsibilities you had in your previous role." I smiled. "Well, Mr. Smith, your company has a good reputation. I am definitely interested in learning more. Please call me Ken," he said with a wide smile. We talked for about an hour, and I realized he was genuinely interested. I told him that I strive for success and always try to develop unique campaigns. I noticed the smile on his face when I said that. About 20 minutes before the end of the interview, he asked a question about my personal life. "We are like a family here," he said, "and I would like to know more about you. Tell us a little about yourself." I told him I grew up in Kansas City, had been married for almost 2 years, and that Jim and I did not have children yet. When he asked me to elaborate, I shared a little about my childhood, Kansas City, and Jim's work. Then he said something I should have picked up on back then. "Well, you are definitely a beautiful woman, and I love your energy. I liked what you said about striving for success." Ken stood up, and I knew the interview was over. I also stood and extended my hand. His hand was large, and he shook mine firmly. We said goodbye. He just said he liked me, and at the time, it seemed to me that he meant professional respect only. I smiled again, feeling more confident that they would offer me the position. I knew I could handle the job and that I had a real chance to get the position. About a week later, Hartford Associates called me and invited me for a second interview. That Wednesday, I was back in Ken's office. It turned out this was not really a second interview but a meeting where he offered me the job. After a brief reintroduction, Ken began the conversation. "Becky, thanks for coming," he said, shaking my hand again. I sat down across from his large desk. "I really enjoyed our interview last week," he continued. "I think you are exactly the person we have been looking for. You have an impressive resume, and I would like to offer you a position that I hope you will seriously consider. We would like to offer you the position of assistant producer. You will lead a small team working on campaigns for our small and medium business clients. Previously, I had been a member of a design team in Kansas City but had never held a leadership position. I tried not to show too much excitement because I understood this was my opportunity. This job was exactly what I needed to jumpstart my career. Mr. Smith, I am ready to take on this position and show what I can do. Working for a company like Hartford is an exciting prospect," I told him. Ken looked pleased, and we agreed on payment terms, which turned out to be even better than I expected. That evening, I cooked a holiday dinner for myself and Jim. I had so much energy thinking about my new job that I could not sit still. When Jim walked in, he smelled the food, looked at the table set with a bottle of wine, and realized that something special had happened. "Becky, what does this all mean?" "I take it everything went well at Hartford?" he asked. I practically jumped into Jim's arms, hugging him tightly and spinning around. Yes, Jim. I got the job as an assistant producer. I will be responsible for small and medium business clients. I will make decisions and develop campaigns. All of this made me feel important, and the salary was higher than I expected. We can save for a house, buy you a new truck. Wait, calm down, girl, Jim smiled. You better establish yourself there first before we make big decisions. Jim, this is exactly what we wanted, I said, unable to stop smiling. I'll be able to build my career for a couple of years, and then we will start our family. My plans kept spilling out excitedly. I was in seventh heaven, looking forward to the future. Underscore 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 underscore. Kyle is my brother. He is a couple of years younger than me and is considered a bit wild. Although he is not truly wild, he simply decided not to go to college. Kyle said he enjoyed working outdoors on construction sites, which kept him in great shape. He had what girls call a perfect body, and Kyle skillfully used his appearance. He always had cute girlfriends who seemed crazy about him. I could understand it. He was polite and respectful, and combined with his looks and work ethic, girls were literally drawn to him. But Kyle was not looking for a serious relationship, so he rarely stayed with someone for long. This did not stop the girls from trying to win him over, sometimes even more than once. Max and I stopped only once to get gas and take a break. We stopped at Burger King by the car. Max wagged his tail as we approached the window. When a pretty young woman looked out, Max climbed onto my lap and stuck his head out of the window toward her, as if greeting an old friend. The woman smiled, and I noticed her name tag, Kayla. I watched Max's tail wagging against the seat as he tried to squeeze closer to Kayla. I laughed at his enthusiasm. Yeah, she's cute, I said quietly to Max. Kayla, this is Max. I introduced them, which made the woman laugh. She handed Max a dog biscuit, which he immediately took. Okay, Max, that's enough, I said, gently pushing him back into place. 1 Whopper with Diet Coke, 6 chicken nuggets, and water. Is that everything? Kayla asked politely with a smile. I paid, and we parked to eat. Max seemed delighted with his nuggets after. After a short walk through the grass, we were on our way again. We arrived home around 7 in the evening. Max and I got out of the car, leaving the bags of clothes in the truck. I knew Mom and Dad would ask why Becky was not with me, and I already had a small lie prepared. When we entered the house, I saw my mother, Kyle, and an unfamiliar girl. I assumed she was Kyle's new girlfriend. They were sitting at the bar between the kitchen and dining room. Dad was sitting at the large table in the dining room, reading the newspaper. Mom jumped up to hug me, and Kyle called Max's name and crouched down to hug the dog. While hugging my mother, I looked at the unfamiliar girl. Kyle was still petting Max, and Mom introduced Tracy to me as Kyle's girlfriend. Nice to meet you, Tracy, I said, giving her a small hug. I was thirsty and asked my mom, is there any Diet Coke in the refrigerator? I am dying of thirst. Of course there is, Jim. I bought it in advance because I knew you were coming. And if there was not, oh horror, she replied. I looked in the refrigerator, took out a can, and opened it. Glancing at my mother, I noticed her gaze was full of questions. Jim, where's Becky? You said she would go with you. I did not say she would come, Mom. She decided to stay home. Jim, you said you would come later. Yes, we have arrived. Max and I replied. Mom looked at me with suspicion. She knew something was wrong, and I knew there was very little chance of fooling her. The last thing I wanted was to burden her with my current problems. I just wanted to feel stability and to be with my family, with people who love me. I was not going to tell them about Becky cheating on me. Is Becky still in Oklahoma City? Mom asked, clearly confused. Becky also had family in Kansas City, and she always came with me. In fact, she was usually the one who planned everything and informed both families. We always went to a barbecue restaurant or a steakhouse together. No, it was somehow spontaneous for me. Becky has work to do this weekend, so I decided to come over, I said. I hoped my mother would believe my excuse, but I knew it was almost impossible to deceive her. I looked at my brother Kyle. I need to buy Max some proper dog food. Do you want to go to the store with me? If I run away, I will not have to answer my mom's questions. After Kyle and I found Max's food at a local store, we stood in line at the checkout. Well, go ahead and lay it out, said Kyle. What happened? Did you and Becky have a fight? I thought, if I cannot hide this from Kyle, then Mom's alarm bells are already ringing. Yes, we had a fight. Nothing serious, I lied. I still was not going to talk about Becky cheating on me. We paid and walked out to my pickup truck, then got inside. Jim, you took the plunge and came here spontaneously. This means something serious happened. Did you do something stupid? Did Becky kick you out? Did you cheat on her? Kyle asked. What? What are you talking about? Kyle, where did you even get this from? Do you think I cheated on Becky? I know what we guys are like. We see a beautiful girl, and sometimes it makes us do stupid things. And Jim, you have things in garbage bags in the back seat. You left in a hurry, Kyle pointed to the back seat of my pickup. Now I was starting to get angry. No way, Kyle. I did not cheat on Becky. It was not me who cheated on her. Kyle looked at me with a blank expression, then his face suddenly changed to one of shock. Oh my God, Jim. You caught Becky with someone else, right? Kyle's eyes studied my face. I wanted to deny it, but I could not say a word. There was a huge lump in my throat. I felt sadness written all over my face. Without another word, I turned around and started the pickup. As I was backing out, Kyle said, "Shooters, Jim. Let us go to Shooters. Let us have a beer and talk. We cannot go home yet." What about Tracy? I asked. Are you going to leave her with Mom and Dad? She loves them, and they love her. Tracy is actually very nice. Besides, she thinks that if I become friends with my mother, I will start to take our relationship more seriously. So, everything is fine. I did not feel like talking at all, but Kyle started asking me questions anyway. As we drove to Shooters, a local sports bar near my parents' house, we sat down at a table. A cute girl in short shorts and a crop top approached us. She recognized Kyle and smiled widely. "Look who it brought to us," she said. "I have not seen you for 100 years. Probably the last time you left me for that blonde. Be a good girl. That blonde was your best friend, if I am not mistaken. She still has it." Yes, we made up. We decided that our friendship is more important than some guy who does not understand anything about a serious relationship. Her words sounded harsh, but it was clear that Nita was not particularly angry. "I admit guilt," Kyle said with a smile. "And who is your next victim?" Nita was smiling now. "I will not tell. You will warn her." "But then what should I do?" They both laughed. "Of course I would warn you. We girls need to stick together, and you need to be warned about broken hearts. So, what should I bring you to?" "Dos Equis, please." I told Kyle everything, but at first he did not believe me. That cannot be. I cannot even imagine that Becky is capable of this. Kyle was shocked. "I mean, what the hell? Does he have money? Do you think she plans to leave you for him and his wealth?" "I do not know. He is so much older than her, and I just cannot imagine it." I just quickly got out of there. Max and I spent the night at the hotel. Becky tries to call and text me every hour or so, but I have turned it off. I patted my pocket, realizing that I had not felt a vibration in a long time. There was no phone in my pocket. "Crap," I said. I realized that I had left it on the table at home. Well, to hell with it, Jim. I do not know what could have made her do this, but there are still plenty of fish in the sea. Hell, Tracy has an older sister who is dead pretty and likes more conservative guys like you. Plus, I have heard that she usually gives in on the first or second date. I can arrange it, Kyle. This is crazy. I am still married, and I am not even thinking in that direction. Well, I figured you would be leaving her soon. So, when you feel like it is time to get back in the saddle, old Kyle is right there. I know, it just happened, but Jim, life is too short to stay with a cheater. I am telling you, move on quickly. I felt like I had to stand up for Becky. My brother had just called my wife a bad word, but I probably felt the same way. At that moment, more than anything, I wanted to get rid of her as quickly as possible. You were right, Kyle. I will move on soon. To hell with it. We both took big gulps of beer. She is just a big mistake that will soon be in the rearview mirror. When we returned home, Mom was setting the table. I looked at the counter where I had left my phone and noticed that someone had put it on charge. Dinner went smoothly. Mom is a great cook. She made beef stew and homemade buns. It was delicious. Dad and I were talking about Royals baseball and discussing our chances for the upcoming season. He was always more pessimistic than me. I think it can be called more realistic, I said. I used to think that every player would exceed expectations, and if everyone was at their best, we would have a great team. Dad pointed out the likelihood of players doing this or that, and the analysis showed that the season would be less than stellar. Unfortunately, Dad was almost always right. Mom was quiet at dinner and mostly talked to Tracy. She glanced at me from time to time, trying to catch my emotions. Dad may not have noticed that there was anything wrong with me, but Mom did not. She knew that something was wrong but did not want to start a conversation on this topic in company. Kyle must have been right. Tracy really tried to please her mom. Perhaps she was trying too hard, but she seemed like a very sweet, beautiful girl, tall, slender, with long straight brown hair and small breasts. She looked like a model. While talking to her mom, she clearly showed interest in Kyle. I heard her ask my mother what he was like as a child. She often touched Kyle's arm. It was clear that she was in love. I did not understand how Kyle always did it. He was always attracted to cute, charming girls, but he never took them seriously. I wondered what would make him finally settle down. After dinner, Kyle seemed to hurry away, saying he had to take Tracy home. It was unusual for a Saturday night, but it seemed like they were in a hurry. I assumed that he also realized that my mother had noticed my condition and decided not to interfere. After Kyle and Tracy left, I stayed to help Mom clean the kitchen. Dad disappeared into the living room, turned on the Royals game, and sat down in his chair. Mom was unusually quiet while we cleaned the kitchen, but that did not last long. In our family, my mother was always the one who listened, and I felt that a conversation was just around the corner. When the kitchen was almost clean, Mom turned to me. I saw sadness and concern in her eyes. "Come on, Jim," Mom said. She pushed the chair away from the table. "Sit down, and you can tell me what is going on." "Nothing is happening," I said defensively, sitting down. "Why are you so?" Mom raised her hand to interrupt me. "Jim, when you went to get food for Max, you left your phone on the counter. It vibrated every 15 minutes like clockwork. I looked to see who was trying to contact you, and it turned out to be Becky. I thought it might be something urgent, so I answered. At first, she was confused when she heard my voice. I told her that you had left your phone. Then I realized that she did not even know you were here. I asked what was going on, and she burst into tears. She did not say much, but she admitted that she had made a terrible mistake and asked me to tell you to call her. Jim, I know what it means when a wife or husband says they made a terrible mistake. Mom looked me straight in the eyes with sadness on her face. I tried to speak. I wanted to say that I had caught Becky, but as I tried to say something, I realized that I could not. The words stuck, and my eyes filled with tears. My reserved face, which I tried to maintain, disappeared, and I began to cry. Mom, I do not know. I do not know what is going on. Mom came over to me, and I stood up. We hugged. I cried and felt like an 8-year-old child, but I did not care. Becky's betrayal shook me to my core. I felt completely lost, but at least I felt love and security in my mother's arms. I was no longer sure if I could trust my old safe places, but I knew I could trust my mother's love and desire to help me cope with the pain. "What did she tell you, Mom?" I have not spoken to her since I caught her in the act of cheating with her boss. God, she did not tell me that. The only thing she said was that she was very wrong, but that she still loves you and wants to talk. We stood there while I tried to pull myself together. "Jim, I do not know what happened there, but she desperately wants to talk to you. She said she was ready to get in a car and come here, but I told her you might not want to talk to her. Then she decided to wait. I am not sure I want to talk to her, Mom. Why should I talk to her? What will I say? All that comes to my mind is you are a cheater, and I want a divorce. Jim, you cannot talk to her like that, even if you saw everything. I taught you to talk to people respectfully. It is hard to believe that Becky could ever change. There must be some incredible reason for this. At a minimum, you need to listen to her and get her version of events. What can she say to make a difference? What, my boss offered me $1 million to spend the night with him? Even that would not matter. I would still divorce her. Jim, I do not know, but you have to talk to her, please. I know it will be hard, but you need to listen to her and understand what is going on before you decide what to do next. Talk at home alone. Emotions will run high, and you will need to speak frankly. But be careful and try not to give way to anger. This will not benefit either of you. Mom, I am not going to hit her or anything. I know you will not do that, Jim, but trust me, for such a conversation, both will need help to control their emotions. It will be very difficult. It will feel like your heart is breaking. Mom spoke as if she had gone through it herself. I thought about asking her, but I was not sure I wanted to know. So, I agreed with her. Okay, Mom, you are right. I think this needs to be done. I am sure it will be terribly painful to listen to her explain why she betrayed me, but I think I have to get through this in order to move on. I will do it. I will set up a time to talk to her. Mom smiled at me. I saw pain in her eyes. Jim, this will be hard. I am so sorry you have to go through this. But do not give up on Becky until you hear her out. People make mistakes. We all make mistakes. We are all human. You need to find out what she has to say. Mom glanced at my phone and made a hand gesture. She wanted me to take it. I looked at her with confusion but realized that she wanted me to call Becky right now. You better do it now. Waiting will not make it any easier. I picked up my phone and pressed the number 1 on my favorites list. Becky answered after the second ring. I heard Becky say my name with difficulty. Jim. Becky was the only word I could say. I looked up and saw my mother quickly leave the kitchen. Suddenly, Becky found her voice again. Jim, thank you for calling. Did your mom persuade you? She said she would do it. Thank her for me. There was a pause, then she said, I am so sorry for what you saw. I cannot even imagine the pain I caused you. I heard her trying to hold back her tears. Jim, you have to believe me. I am very sorry this happened. I never meant to hurt you. Now she was crying. Becky, what on earth? How could you? Am I not enough for you? Is this what it is about? You went to sleep with your boss? Does he have more money, or is he just better? Oh my God, Jim, no. This is not true at all. She was now sobbing loudly, choking between words. This is all such a huge mistake. I ruined everything, my whole life. I cannot believe how much I ruined everything. She sobbed and tried to speak further, but I could no longer understand what she was saying. Yes, a huge mistake. That is putting it mildly. And now you are going to have a big divorce, because I do not want to be part of your ruined life anymore. Oh God, no. Jim, please do not say that. I love you. You have to understand, everything is out of control. Max slowly entered the room and stood next to me. He must have heard the tone of my voice and realized I was in pain again. He turned and lay down at my feet, resting his head on his front paws. Becky, I do not know what got out of hand, but I will give you one chance to explain yourself. I will be back at 0000 hours on Monday morning, but I will not be coming home then. I will stop by the house on Monday evening at 7 o'clock. We can talk then, but I warn you, I want to hear the truth. If you start lying, I will leave, and I will not stay in the house. I do not think there is anything you can say that will make me forgive you and come back, but I am ready to come and listen to you. Thank you, Jim. I know if we see each other and talk, we will find a way to make things right. I love you so much, Jim, and I cannot live without you. Please tell me that you still love me. You love me so much, right? Well, you have a strange way of showing it.